This week is about to be the craziest Thanksgiving week you will see in a long time. What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. All right, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We have quite a bit that we're going to go ahead and discuss with you guys. We have winter weather to talk about. We have a little bit of severe weather that we're going to be talking about as well. Probably spend a couple minutes on that. And we have tropical weather to talk about as well. So we're dealing with a little bit of everything, as John and I would often say. And with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it right now. So starting off, we have our winter weather for you right here. We are seeing the possibility of multiple snowstorms happening in the span of the next week to 10 days. I think we're getting the first round tonight and tomorrow and going into Thanksgiving. The second round will be starting on Saturday for a lot of people, and the third round will be in early December, between the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of December. So we're going to be talking about those, going over some of the environment and looking at temperatures as well, just to kind of see how much this is going to evolve, because we also have an Arctic blast that we need to talk about as well, that we need to pay attention to. I was on Weather Kingdom stream last night talking about that quite a lot, actually. So we have quite a bit to discuss with you so far, so let's go ahead and get started. So starting off right here, this is the GFS run right here. I know it's the GFS, but because this goes out the longest and it gives the best presentation for synoptic setups that far out, we're going to be using this just kind of as a placeholder per se. But here's what we have for you right here. We have this Alberta Clipper system starting to develop right here in the next, I would say, 12 to 24 hours as it moves through parts of North Dakota and Minnesota by tomorrow morning, as it starts to really ramp up in intensity as well. The pressure on this, though, is around 1,001 millibars, but you're seeing very heavy snowfall for parts of Minnesota, for parts of the upper Midwest, for especially parts of Wisconsin and the upper peninsula of Michigan, with Michigan even seeing some potential snowfall behind that 5,400 meter line right here as the system moves through. You're looking at a lot of lake effect snow with this on top of that as well, that you're going to want to watch for as well. And by the time we get to Thanksgiving, much of the Great Lakes are going to see pretty significant lake effect snow from this, whether it's intensity or accumulation. So if you are in this region right here, you're definitely going to see some impacts. This is going to cause some travel problems. So if you have travel plans, if you're in Michigan, if you're in parts of the Great Lakes like Ohio and Pennsylvania and New York, I would get those started sooner rather than later. You're looking at some rainfall first starting tomorrow, and then you're going to get some snowfall beginning on Wednesday. I would say if you want to exercise those plans, I would travel most likely either today or tomorrow if possible. If not, you're going to be getting through a lot of snow for those regions, so you're going to want to pay attention to that and see how that's going to pan out. But my goodness, look at the amount of lake effect that we're going to be seeing for parts of Ontario and the Great Lakes as well. And then as we get to Black Friday, it starts to taper off, but then we have another potential snowstorm starting to develop. You have a Colorado low over here beginning to organize and develop, and we're going to want to watch how that pans out as well, because by the time we get to Saturday, you're looking at the snowfall starting a little bit right here, but then really starting to ramp up for parts of the upper Midwest right here. By the time we get to the 30th of November right here, is potentially the Great Lakes as well. By the time we get to December 1st as well, you're seeing the system start to move out as well, kind of a bit further to the north than what we've seen with previous runs, I've noticed, so we'll have to pay attention to see how that pans out as well. But still, another round of snowfall for a lot of you guys going on. Then as we get to the 2nd and the 3rd of December, you do start seeing another Colorado low starting to organize and develop off Colorado, going into Kansas, then Iowa, in parts of Illinois, Indiana, and parts of Michigan as well. Start seeing that snowfall starting to move through that region as well, and then starting to spread into the northeastern United States and across Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, New York City, Boston. Those areas could potentially be in the line of fire as well, and that's something that we're going to want to pay attention to moving forward, and we'll have to keep an eye on it, especially going into December 6th as we see that back end of heavy snowfall impacting much of the Northeast. Now, keep in mind, by the time this whole scenario plans out, we are about 12 days out at that point, and we still have a lot of uncertainty left to go. But overall, off to a pretty explosive start for much of the winter right here, based on just what we're seeing with the snowfall potential and based on what we're seeing with those low pressure systems starting to develop. Another thing we need to watch out for as well is the temperatures, because on top of all three of these snow systems impacting parts of the U.S., you also have a scenario in which you're going to see multiple rounds of an Arctic blast starting to move through parts of the U.S. And we talked about this in yesterday's video as well, and we're going to go ahead and talk about it again. But here's the situation. Going into tomorrow, you look at temperatures starting to plummet across much of the United States. Temperatures across parts of the mountain regions, they're below close to zero at this point. I'm not too surprised about that. But as we get to Thanksgiving right here, you start seeing that cold front making its waves all the way down to Iowa, parts of Kansas, and even northwestern Missouri as well. Looking at that freezing line, getting below freezing by Wednesday morning. But look at this. You're looking at single-digit temperatures in parts of the upper Great Plains right here in North Dakota, maybe even bleeding into South Dakota and Minnesota a little bit as time goes on. It does warm up a little bit as the day goes on. But look at this. This is Thanksgiving morning. This is 6 a.m. Central Time Thanksgiving morning for a lot of people. You're below freezing all the way down to St. Louis, all the way down through the Appalachians of North Carolina, and even to Oklahoma. So for a lot of people, it's going to be a very cold Thanksgiving on top of that lake effect snow that you're going to get. And for those wondering, yeah, you're looking at good temperatures for that type of snowfall, especially in Michigan and the Great Lakes, because you're below freezing. You're in the upper 20s to maybe even 30 degrees in a few areas. But by and large, looking at that, you're definitely in those optimal temperatures for some pretty significant snowfall, especially some pretty significant lake effect snowfall as well. You're going to want to watch that as time goes on and how the system moves forward. But my goodness, these temperatures continue, and then they continue through Thanksgiving across the Great Lakes as well, although it starts to warm up a little bit. But then as we get to Black Friday, look at how low and how far south that freezing line goes. It goes all the way down to Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, according to the GFS. If that holds, that is going to be a lot of problems. You're going to see a lot of freeze warnings and all of that stuff happening. But look at this. You're looking at temperatures in the 20s. You're looking at temperatures potentially in the teens in northern Illinois and Wisconsin, as that cold air continues to push through. And then as you get to Saturday, those temperatures do start to warm up a little bit. You have a ridge starting to influence parts of the United States. But then this is the big kahuna right here. This is starting the 1st December. This massive polar vortex over here in Canada starts to push into the United States around December 2nd. At this current point, you're starting to get around by 6 a.m. on December 2nd. Look at this. You're looking at up to negative 10 degrees, maybe even negative 19 across parts of the Dakotas right here, across much of the upper Great Plains right here. But that's only going deeper and deeper and further to the south. Those models have continued to trend further to the south as well, and you're going to have to keep that in mind and pay some consideration to that. And then as we get to December 3rd right here, you definitely start seeing that consolidate and definitely start seeing that cold front move through parts of the United States right there. And that is a pattern that's going to continue for much of the time window and going through much of December as well. You're going to see some very cold temperatures. And then even going into December 9th, this is still very early. Please do keep that in mind. You're looking at extreme cold from central Illinois all the way to the Canadian border, and from Montana all the way to New York. Keep in mind, this is December 9th. This is 15 days out. Take it with a massive grain of salt. But ultimately, this is a very, very, very serious situation that you're going to want to pay attention to as that pattern switches over and you start seeing more snowfall as a result. Let's go ahead now and take a look at some of the snow accumulation as well. We're going to go ahead and take a quick gander at both the GFS and the European just to give you an idea for that Clipper system as that moves through. You're looking at snowfall, maybe a good 6 to 8 inches of snow at most for parts of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota. And you're potentially going to see up to 18 inches of snow according to the GFS because of the lake effect. I think that's a little overkill at this current point. We'll have to see. But by the time we get to the morning of Black Friday, much of Michigan starts seeing a lot of lake effect snow. A lot of the snowfall accumulation in Michigan I do think is interesting. Will be mainly consolidated by the lakes unless the Clipper system moves a bit further to the south. But ultimately, you do have these very multi-inch snowfall rates for parts of Pennsylvania, New York, where the lake effect snow is proficient right there. Proficient right there. But ultimately, what we're seeing right here is mainly that lake effect really kicking in. And then as we get to Saturday, right here, taking a quick look at this, potentially some snowfall potential for parts of Iowa and Missouri right here. But then as the main stuff starts to kick in right here, if we go ahead and get to this point right here, you're seeing potentially another, how much snowfall is this? Potentially another 10 inches of snowfall for parts of the upper Midwest as well from that system starting to kick in. And then as we get to December 3rd and 4th, you start seeing some more snowfall impact the Chicago area, parts of lower Michigan as well, and parts of the Great Lakes as well. You're going to have to pay attention to that and see how this is going to pan out as we see these multiple rounds of snow really start to impact much of the U.S. We also have the European we can go ahead and show you. The European is definitely the more aggressive model out of the two. For example, what we're seeing right here for the storm on the 29th, you're seeing the system push further to the south, potentially impacting much of Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, and parts of lower Michigan as well. You're going to want to pay attention to that as well. That's going to definitely impact some more people. If the European is the more accurate run, Chicago potentially gets up to 7 inches of snow as well. Detroit, 7 to 8 inches as well. That's definitely going to impact travel conditions as well. St. Louis is right on the cusp of it, potentially seeing maybe 4 inches of snow, maybe up to 6 inches of snow in some of the northern suburbs up there as well. Springfield as well, potentially seeing up to a foot. The European has been the more aggressive model of the two I've noticed with this. And then as we get to the 3rd, right here, you start seeing a bit more snowfall across parts of the upper Midwest as well that you're going to want to pay attention to as well. So overall, a very wild week we are dealing with the polar vortex, with the snowfall that we're going to be seeing for parts of the Midwest. It's not so much the snowfall itself that I'm concerned about. It's more so the travel conditions I'm concerned about, because that weekend of the 29th and the 30th, a lot of people are going to be traveling home from Thanksgiving. A lot of people are going to be traveling back to school from Thanksgiving break. That's going to cause some problems. So if you're traveling right here, it would be best to make your travel plans before the big snowfall starts to impact. So if you're for example, let's go ahead and give it a little bit of a time frame on this right here, just to give a general idea of what's going on. So the snowfall is expected to snowfall, at least for some areas, starts on Saturday. With the European picking up as well. If you're expected to leave Sunday from Michigan, Wisconsin to head back to wherever you're going, I would leave on Saturday just to play it safe, just in case. But we'll have to pay attention and see what happens going forward. But ultimately, I would be very cognizant of your travel plans. Leave early if you can, for sure. And we'll have to keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But another thing that we're going to want to watch out for is the severe weather element of it as well. Taking a quick gander at that, taking a quick gander at a couple of the snowfall systems as well. For the 29th, look at that right here. That's potentially a bit of a squall line feature, as a matter of fact. Let's go ahead and take a look at simulated reflectivity. It's not the best in terms of mesoscale, but you can definitely start to see, there's definitely a bit of a squall line setup developing for severe weather and potentially a good environment with this as well. Let's take a look at the Cape real quick. Not particularly the most favorable environment, but with that forcing from the squall line, you should be from the forcing from the cold front that's going to be generated. It should be give it a pretty wild ride. You also are seeing some severe weather as well in parts of the United States today. As a matter of fact, slight risk issued for parts of the U.S. Over here, let's go ahead and move this over and show you that. Slight risk for parts of the U.S., 5% tornado, 15% wind, 15% hail. So that's what we have going for you right here. Overall, you're going to want to watch the environment and see how that will pan out, but it's kind of a situation where, at least based on what I'm seeing, there's a little bit of partly cloudy cover over there, so there's a little bit of clearing that we're going to want to pay attention to as well. But ultimately, that's kind of what you're dealing with severe weather. I would not be too worried about this. This is mainly your typical stuff, but remember, seek shelter if a tornado warning's issued, turn around, don't drown, all of that basic stuff that we can kind of cover our bases with right here. And now lastly, to probably the most controversial topic of today's video is the tropical weather aspect of it. I know it's November 24th. We don't talk about tropics at this current stage of the hurricane season at this current point, but we do need to talk about it because we are still seeing a legit signal and some decent environmental factors ramping up with the tropical development for parts of the Caribbean. So we're going to want to go ahead and go over those very quickly. Let's go ahead and take a quick gander at some of the ensembles very quickly for you guys as well. Looking at this right here, we're going to go ahead and shift my camera view over here and shift the screen over here as well. Taking a quick gander so far, you're looking at, based on the European, you're noticing an interesting shift in the guidance right here. You're not seeing as much development. The reason you're not is because it looks like it's shifting further and further to the west, potentially towards Central America and the Yucatan Peninsula as well. It's a trend I've noticed since yesterday, as a matter of fact. Let's go ahead and show you the GFS ensembles as well. These are very prevalently showing that as well. Before, we were keeping the system mainly in the northwestern Caribbean, expected to move through the Yucatan Strait and then potentially head towards Florida. But now what we're seeing right here is you're seeing a situation in which this system starts to move further to the west, make landfall in Nicaragua, and then make landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula, and then turn towards Florida. And the reason it would turn towards Florida in this instance is because we have that cold front. Remember, it's December 3rd. That system right there. You have that cold front that's going to dig down into the Gulf region, and it's going to allow, kind of yank that tropical cyclone, if it does develop at this point, towards Florida. And that's why you would see that massive turn to the right and turn towards the east. We'll have to see what happens and see how that pans out as well. So we'll have to pay attention and see how this looks. Still the ensembles, at least the AI runs, they are giving a little bit of a ride with this. You're still seeing a few ensembles with this, but it's not as big of a signal as what we've seen yesterday, partly due to that shift towards land, towards the Yucatan and Central America. So that's something that we're going to want to watch out for. And then as we go ahead and go towards the GNC, there's still a relatively interesting signal to this. It's just relatively weak, in part because of the conditions and in part because of this shift towards the west. So we'll have to pay attention to it and see how that pans out as well. But I do want to take a quick gander at some of the conditions. The dry air aspect of it is something I am very, very, very skeptical about with tropical development, because taking a gander at this, you do look at this right here. You're dealing with a lot of dry air outside of the southwestern Caribbean. Right here, it's going to be very tricky for the system to develop much unless we see a bit of a moisture surge happening. Going to the 29th and the 30th, there is a potential you see less dry air, more mixable dry air, but as you get to December 2nd, December 3rd, as well as, actually, as a matter of fact, it is a little bit less than what we've seen previously. Right there, a little bit less than previously. You're seeing a little bit more moisture, a little bit less dry air as well, and ultimately, You definitely are seeing a slightly more favorable environment compared to what we've seen in days past, but there are a lot of question marks to deal with at that current point, and the wind shear aspect of it is still another thing that I'm a bit skeptical about as well, but that's kind of a situation we'll have to talk about next time. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you'd like to help out, hang out, or ask us some questions, as always, feel free to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that will be in the end screen. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.